Wellness Coalition and how it works with the tribal court, and how you're looking at community wellness and art and everything all rolled into one, rather than a pocketed thing going on. That they're all little standalone silos. And looking at it from an arts lens, of course, because we're an arts organization, kind of building off that Manila in Her Heart last year that had that communicated so much information and went I don't want to say beyond theater, but really was the genesis of what theater is in a society, right? It's to reflect and encourage dialogue and hearing. Especially that method is about stopping talking and listening. So that's what I'm looking at for your discussion. Over to you.
All right.
Yeah. It's been really great working with Laura and the Wellness Coalition. I think it's a really cool thing that
she's really good. Yeah.
She's so amazing. Yeah. I've had some really great conversations with her. Yeah. So that's good. Barb says hello.
Oh, good.
I'm hoping that she'll be able to watch. She's just got other things, but it'll be saved on YouTube too. So people can come back to it through our website.
And Judge Abby, I do have that photo ready whenever you want to have me share it. I'm happy to.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought maybe we could say, hey, Laura, we could save our the stipend, and maybe you and I and Barb could have lunch with it.
Sweet. I'm down with that.
All right, let's do that. So as soon as we can do that. So put it in a little jar somewhere.
I will. I'll put it in a little jar somewhere. All
right, good.
That'd be great. That'd be so much fun.
Yeah, I thought, let's do that. That's better.
Yeah. Sweet. Yeah. Great. So what are we at here? We're at 12 o'clock. So I think we have people online, and let's get started with our discussion with Judge Abby Abenanti. I'm so pleased that you can join us here today as part of the Women's Festival, as powerful women as activists. You are in the thick of the pack, Judge Abby. So the work that you're doing and your truth and speaking your truth, that's what draws me to you and your vast knowledge and action. So without further ado, I would like to turn the conversation over to you, Judge Abby Abenanti.
All right, thank you very much. And I see my fellow PAC member Laura is there, so you can help me, Laura. You should join in at will here.
Would you like to be in a gallery view or just in speaker view? And Laura, would you like to join on screen too?
Yes, Laura would like to join on screen.
Wonderful.
I'm helping her.
Thank you, Judge.
There, see?
That was easy.
Yeah, it wasn't so hard. Oh. In any event, I want to talk a little bit to start about our wellness court, which Laura has worked with the whole time she's been home. And it's something we're really pleased with. It isn't, post-invasion, our people came away with a lot of problems. And we decided to approach those problems as something that can be resolved by going back to our value systems. And so our court is really set up to go, okay, here's the practices that we need, and we're going to attach those practices to our value system. And our value system is pretty responsibility laden. And it really is, we have interfacing responsibilities to each other, to all the beings here, to everything that is in our place. And that includes, frankly, the people who have come here after. And we have things that I think we can do to help them come to harmony. Because if we look around our world right now, in this country, it's kind of a mess. And they have run amok, and it's hurting everybody. So our approach is really to go, okay, let's start hurting each other and ourselves, and let's move forward. And that individual effort really requires art and what people refer to as art as if it was a separate thing, to be reintegrated into everybody's life. And what does that look like? And how do you use it? And Laura, I'm going to ask you just to comment a little bit about, the things that we're doing as far as the virtual classes and those kinds of things. Why don't you go ahead with that?
Right. Thank you, Judge. Ayukui,
Ayukui.
everyone. Now, Laura Woods. I'm a community outreach specialist for the Yurok Tribal Court. And speaking of art history and the use of the arts in the telling of the story or creating a new narrative, if you will, going forward, and as we envision the life that we hope to have, one in harmony, like you just said, Judge. So I'll use an example of one that our Wellness Coalition is doing in conjunction with the Arcata Playhouse, and it's coming up next month, and we're really excited about it. Is we have on video one of our storytellers, Arnie Albers Jr., telling the story, the Yurok story of the little bird who was wounded and needed a place to recover, and all his family had flown south, and here he is hurt and he's scared and alone and doesn't know what to do. It's a really powerful story, and he goes and asks Mrs. Dogwood if he could nest in her limbs for the winter, because he couldn't fly south with his family, and she said no, because she didn't want him to mess up her flowers. And so he goes on this journey until finally he meets the redwood tree, who welcomes him and puts him up on the branch and takes care of him during the winter. So even though he has a tough journey, he sings his songs in between as he's walking between, trying to find a place to go. So we're going to be doing that, using that story as a jumping off place, and going to the Orrick School, who has 26 students that we can't wait to work with next month. We're going to help them create puppets, and we're going to show them that story. We're going to base it on that story, and we're going to let the children do an interpretation through puppet art and shadow puppetry to perform that story. And it's a 2-week project next week. So I think in that it has all the elements. It has tradition, it has our ancestry, it's got traditional storytelling, which in itself, when done right, is a definite form of art and expression and self-expression. And so I'm really excited. I can't wait to see what the kids do with this. And of course, they get to keep their puppets at the end of it all. We're hoping for a community production so that the parents and everybody else in the community that wants to see them perform can come that evening. And we're going to have food, which isn't, very culturally appropriate, and it's exciting. So there's an example of the use of wellness, the vision of the outreach committee and the Wellness Coalition, the cooperation of the community and Arcata Playhouse in particular, and how it's all coming together. And it's going to be a lot of fun to see what the kids do with it. So incorporating our traditional storytelling, our modern day shadow puppetry, and we'll see. But all the point being in that it is a healing endeavor. It's going to be not only educational, it's not only going to be community driven, family driven. There's going to be a lot of healing from that, because the children, all of our Yurok stories and legends have morals or a lesson to learn at the end of it that is very applicable today. So when you come across people who shut you down or aren't willing to help you or are kind of mean or short with you, what do you do with that? And so these lessons, it's going to be fun to see how the kids take that, what they do with it. And that's the example that comes to my mind right now, Judge.
Great. I mean, because that's the whole point of art, is to teach lessons, and not in a, okay, well, we're going to sit you down and here it is. It's really life lessons that you can take into yourself. And one of the examples I wanted to use, and I'll ask them to put it up on the screen in a moment, is we were having a few years ago difficulty on the eastern edge of our reservation with suicide, with young people committing suicide. And one of the ways that we chose to address it was to have an art project. And people were like, what? Why would you do that? And what are you talking about? And what we decided to do was have a camp and invite the surviving families and the children in the surviving families to the camp. And to run the art camp, we supplied all of the material to be present. And we've got Claudia Bernardi, who is a very well-known artist from Argentina. And she began her art career in the villages outside of Buenos Aires that had faced massacres. And she went into the villages after the massacres and did murals with the survivors. And I thought, okay, that's the kind of person I need to do this. And she's now in this country, and she had been working primarily in the camps where they had locked up children as they tried to cross the border, and working with them on art projects. So I got in contact with her, and she agreed to come here. And she did eventually. We set up a time, and she was going to come here, and we had our people invite people to the camp. And I remember I was away traveling on work, and somebody sent me a picture of her and our kids, and I went, oh my God, she's only like this big. I've got to get back up there. This is going to be horrendous. So I run up there and come home, and it was amazing. She had these kids. They were all as happy as could be. And in a 3-day period, they themselves drew this mural. I'm going to ask Shoshone to put it up for me now so you can see it, and then we'll talk about it. I don't know how to do that, but she does. So yeah, see? And you can see the panels, and the panels show both our culture, the strength of the culture, and the sorrow. If you look to the far right first, we'll start there, is the girl with a gun to her head in a suicide, and a boy. And what that boy drew for us was a meeting, an AA meeting, but nobody was there. Nobody was doing it. And in the next panel, as you move to the left, is a girl who's cutting her wrists and bleeding. And you see other cultural items in there. And then you go on and you see the fishing, and you see the dancing as you look up to the left there, and the strength of the culture to the left. But what's amazing to me is this was all done by children, by young people. And they drew this, and they were like on the floor painting it and designing it and talking about it and working for hours and hours and hours on it. And this was in some ways, for some of them, the first time they talked about it, about the pain that they felt from these situations, because they had all lost either siblings or cousins to this epidemic. And this was their story. This is their memory. This is what they were holding. And I found it to be something that was very, very significant to them. And I spent a lot of time with them in the 2 days, that remaining 2 days that they were doing this mural. And this mural now hangs in our tribal administration building. And I think it's really significant because it really talks about something that was meaningful to our kids. And it's a gift, from them to us, to remind us and to help us pass a really difficult time. And it's, at first glance, you kind of don't really notice. Then as you look at it, you go, whoa, and I think that you see how important the different cultural images are and their inclusion in it, the fish, and one of the things in our culture is how we are all members of a family. The fish are in our family, the river is in our family. Everything is part of the same family grouping, and we have responsibilities to each other. And that's what you're seeing here. And you see the birds and the bears and everything that that is meaningful to us you're seeing in these pictures. We're probably going to have her. Laura, did you want to say something, or are you just?
Yeah, just on a side note, Judge, if I may.
Sure.
I had the luxury, the privilege of being there and watching it from just blank canvases to what you see here. And it was quite a transformation and amazing experience. And so my behind the scenes, you took it from right to left, Judge. And when I explain it to people, because it can be kind of cryptic if you don't know the backstory on it.
Right.
From left to right, the far left panel there shows how things were a long time ago before invasion, before everything got so bad. And you can tell by the river how fresh it is, how fast flowing it is. Your girl with her burden basket and her flower dance instrument in her hand. Up there in that big orange circle is examples of our brush dance and our jump dance and our white deer skin dance there and our brush dance. And then the next panel over, you can tell where things start after invasion. What happened? Things started to not be so healthy. You can see the person in the canoe, people in the river drowning. You've got, I have a question in the chat about the mermaid. I can't remember the backstory on the mermaid, but there's an eel, the lamprey eel. And again, like Judge said, it's all of those parts of nature that are so integrated and important to us. So if you'll notice on the third panel going to the right, now the fish are sick and the fish are going the wrong way in the river and it's contamination. You've got environmental concerns and you've got cries for help, basically the girl with the cutting, that things are not going well, which led us to that current day with their interpretation of how to display the current the suicide epidemic that was so rampant at that time. So I like how you did it from right to left, Judge. I get that. And then I thought maybe just to bring it back the other way home with that explanation from left to right. So,
no, and I think that's the whole story. That's the thing about our culture is it is a culture of context. It isn't just about over here on the right is the symptom. And art gives you that. It gives you a context. And that's sort of the point of art, because I'd like Laura to talk a little bit about the context of the kids and their dialogue with each other and how they went back and forth with the teacher and with each other, because that's the context. And you go, okay, well, this wasn't just, some anonymous thing. This was a work and a group effort. And I think that's sort of the behind the story.
Yeah. Yes. And it's, if I recall correctly, it was like, here we are now. How did we get here? So that's what brought about that contemplation and a lot of rough drafts and a lot of big sheets of butcher block paper and a lot of pencil drawing and ideas, and how it all came together was very organic and it was very healing and something amazing to see. And what was discussed then that I don't know has been discussed now is where's the fifth panel? How are we going to, once we move beyond that fourth panel there and we're on that journey to wellness, or maybe it's an entire other 4-panel mural that we need to do, but possibly, I remember the conversation with the kids being, where do we go from here? This part is where we are, but how do we go forward from here? And what is that going to look like? So I don't know, after COVID, Judge, maybe it's a time to bring Claudia back and do another panel and have it an ongoing project. I don't know.
Yeah, I think we are looking to bring her back to work on the murdered and missing women and children's issues, and we'll do another panel. And then I think that's a good idea. Where are we going? How are we going to resolve, what has become our sort of everyday, and as we get stronger and as we participate more in art, and we're spending a lot of time at the court reintroducing opportunities for people to engage in weaving, to engage in making jewelry, to engage in fishing, making nets, doing things that brought us harmony and brought us to be responsible. And that panel to the left, you know, the tens of thousands of years we were in that panel, and things were so much better for this place and for all of the people who were in this place. And, you know, our journey is really to find the way back to that. And this is a way to help us to understand that and to understand our responsibilities and how do you get back to it. And I think art's a crucial part of it, you know, art and storytelling. And, you know, this is how you do it and this is why you do it. And this mural is, you know, you can look at it and you can, you know, looking at the left, I look at it and it just brings me joy to see that panel, you know, and then I look to the right and it does. It never ceases to hurt me to see that, you know, and to see that message of how did this happen? How did this happen? You know, and Laura's right. We must heal from that, you know, and art is part of the healing process. It was for these children, and you know, I think it is for all people to use art in that fashion and to let people work on themselves individually, you know, and that's essentially creating the context. It's always about context for us. Is how do you get there, and how do you stay there once you get there? And it's not an easy journey. I'm not sure if others have questions. I can't really figure out how to do that part because I want to answer the questions as we go along.
Would you like me to read the question? Or there's not really questions yet, but would you like to hear the comments in the chat so far?
Sure. You know, and if people have questions, part of it is to be as interactive as possible. We would like to interact with you. And if you have questions,
and I can give people voice if you'd like to hear people with questions. If they raise your hand. Yeah, if you just raise your hand in the attendees list, we can give you a voice and you can talk too.
Okay, so so are there questions then or not? I can't tell. I'm sorry, I'm not really good at this stuff. Yeah.
Yes, there is one.
Okay.
I'll find her on the list. Sorry, Terry, just a second. Let me find you. Go ahead, Terry.
Yes, I was wondering, the youth who worked on this mural, have they been asked or interviewed after this project as to what the experience was for them to do this mural and if things look differently to them now?
Well, that's interesting because it's, you know, we often get asked for data and to be able to show results and go forward. And our way of getting that data was to talk to them as we go along. And then because we're in the same community, we're not strangers to them, and to watch them and to talk to them as they're doing it. And as you watch them from the first night, I think it was Thursday night or maybe Friday night, I'm not quite sure. As they moved through the days, they changed and they became lighter. Mm-hmm. And they talked to each other and to Claudia, because Claudia could say, you know, I came from a place where all this happened and it was really sad, and tell stories. And they, like Laura's telling a story, told stories back, you know, because then it isn't about, oh, well, an interview. It's about Claudia told me a story and now I'm telling Claudia a story, you know, and engaging in that way, and becoming, their healing became part of a community process as opposed to, you know, a different process. And we were very pleased to see the incident of suicide reduce, you know, following this, and seeing them more able to participate in community and not to hide in their homes and to, you know, I mean, because it's a very difficult thing to lose lose a peer or lose a sibling or a cousin, for children to come back from that. I mean, for anybody to come back from it, frankly. So that's how we gauged it, and to see joy return to them. You know, it's just like I can turn my head, like I said, and see to the left, and I can see joy. You know, I can turn away from the sorrow. They weren't able to initially. And, you know, to give them that gift, not to forget, but to go forward into the joy.
Thank you. That's really beautiful how you've described that.
One of the comments in the chat, and this is Jackie here at the Playhouse. One of the comments in the chat is the intersecting justice and art, and that people had never heard of the intersecting of justice and art. And I guess I just wanted to put forward to you, because sometimes in the colonial culture, there is a difference between art and who you are in the world. And I feel like many other cultures, there's not the difference there, that the art is very much incorporated into who you are within your community, that art is very much a part of who you are. I mean, I guess we have that in the church. There's very much art in the churches. Just talking about the intersection of justice and art, and then how we move forward as a people with multiple points of view in this community, and multiple backgrounds and histories, and just to talk to that a little bit.
Right, I'm laughing at Laura's cat, who is once again trying to take over her video.
Wouldn't be Zoom without a cat. Where's the barking dog?
Especially not at Laura's house. Anyway, sorry.
No, that's okay.
I was making fun of her. I think, you know, the whole siloing of people and siloing of who you are as a person is culturally, I think, not something we did historically. And I don't know, you know, my position on this now is that, you know, many people who came to this country came on the run because they were fleeing from horrible events. And when they got here, they were introduced to a whole different way of being. And part of that became pretty rapidly, we're going to be a melting pot. You're not going to have a culture anymore. This is going to be your culture. So you need to forget all that stuff and do this. And here's the list. And the list didn't include that. You know, and they did that for whatever reason. And my feeling and sense and opinion is that was wrong. It's wrong for them to be asked that, and wrong for them to give up their culture. Because most cultures had this full person approach before. We're one of the few that doesn't have it, meaning the country. You know, and I don't know that it's really served us well. And I think it's really getting your mind to the point where you go, this is not, I'm not learning a new way of doing it. I'm remembering an old way of doing it. I'm waking this up, and this is what we're going to do. We're going to return to this old way of doing it. And I think that's why it's in many ways so easy for us to go there, because it isn't that far back for us. You know, and so you go, okay, that's what we're going to do. But I think offered the opportunity, other people who have cultural memories will do the same. And I guess that's my feeling of it. Because if you think about it, if you think about moving through the world without that, you go, how is that going to be possible? Exactly how is that going to be possible? You know, that I will not have art in my life. I will not have art responsibility in my life. I just don't see it, you know. And that awakening, that remembering is there. You know, and there's the whole study now of epigenetics and all that stuff about, oh yeah, it is in the memory. You may not remember it exactly, you know. And people often think that they're making an individual choice, when in fact, if you get people from a like culture together, they all seem to be making the same like choice. You know, you go, wait a second, where did that come from? Laura?
One of the added bonuses I'd like to throw out there to this mural and the work done on it is there were some adults there that were helping out, you know, reaching some of the high spots and you know, preparing for lunch. And, yeah, including me. Yeah.
Too short to reach the high spots.
All right, guys. We know.
Okay, settle down or you'll wait in the car.
My legs are barely long enough to reach the ground, but so there were adults there, and we all knew why we were there, and you know, the kids in their dialogue and their thoughts about it. A real added bonus, I think, to this is remember when we had the panels just someplace trying to find a place to mount them, and we weren't sure if it was going to be outside or in the courthouse, and it ended up in the main building. But what that did when they got posted up in the main entranceway to the main headquarters there in Klamath, and I invite everyone, once we're past COVID, if you can, get a chance to drive up to Klamath and go into our tribal headquarters and take a look at this in person, because it really loses something in the photography. You should stand there because it's huge. It's really big. But another benefit, in my opinion, what this mural did was it facilitated the opening of conversation of the adults. Mm-hmm. And that was so necessary and so healing in its own right. Just and you know, honestly, it was met with a little bit of resistance. You know, it's like, we don't want to, you know, do we want to portray this, you know, this honesty? This is really hurtful. I mean, it's hard to look at that fourth panel. And so the discussion about the suicides, the discussion about what are we going to do going forward, and the discussion when you have to look at that fourth panel and say, yeah, you know, that's it right now. So we're here. How do we not be here anymore? How do we move forward in a good way so that the next panel will be better? But I think that getting the adults to talk about it was a big plus. It was a big bonus in the completion and the posting of this mural. And I really want to tip my hat to our leadership that did agree that it needed to be posted there for people to see, and as a conversation starter and as a step of healing, that it's very valuable. So that's all I wanted to say.
And I think that many of us, meaning adults, have taken the position, I don't want to talk about that. You know, it was too horrible. I'm not going to talk about it. I'm not going to bring this to my children. You know, I'm not going to have this out on the table. And in retrospect, that's probably not a good plan, because they do know it. They don't know the words. They don't know whatever, but they know there's some grief there. And grief is really hard to contain because it comes out in behavior. And so what you're trying to do here is make it come out in words so people can work with it and can see it. And at first, you know, some people, when council was discussing it, they were saying, you know, this is horrible. We don't want this out in the main building. And, you know, and my position was, do you want me to tell our children that you don't want their art in the main building? And they were like, no, Judge, I don't think that's a good idea. You know, that's not what we meant, but it's really hurtful. And I said, yeah, and it's their pain. And we need to help them. And they gave this to us. And it took a lot of effort for them to do it. You know, and they resolved, and they did. They looked at it and they voted, and they said it going in the front, right in the front of the building. And it did, to their credit. Because you could, you know, you could look at this and go, oh my God, let's put this in the back corridor of someplace in whatever, you know. You could see that being a reaction. And Laura, somebody had a question about the third panel, the woman in the red. Do you remember what that one was about? I can't see it really well.
Can you tell us about the figure in the third panel from the left inside the red circle and maybe the triangles on the mountains? Blessings. That's from Jama Chaplin.
Okay. So traditionally triangles are basket design. We call it the sturgeon back design, and you'll see that prevalent in all kinds of different ways in our baskets and everything that we do in a lot of our artwork. It's the sturgeon back design. The figure of light in the center there on the third panel, I can't remember her name, but it was a young man, and he had been reading about in school, I think if I'm recalling correctly, he was reading about ancient or religions and myths and stories in India. And I believe this is something that he took away from that she is a goddess of light, maybe. And she has in her hands, you can't see it too well, but she has two implements of light. But I can't remember the details, and I think he might have been a little vague on it too, but it really meant a lot to him at the time. And I think that he was kind of in his way equating light with hope. And that's what I recall about it. But the name of
I thought he was talking about also about medicine women.
Oh, maybe so.
You know, because the way she's, you know, and with the triangles around. I'm trying to remember.
Oh, maybe it was based on that other one, and then he modified her to be.
Yeah, I think he combined it in his mind, you know.
Yeah.
I
didn't take notes, and we didn't videotape this process. No. And I kind of wish we would have, because over time it gets harder to remember so many details. And then you've got the medicine wheel. Others are quite, I think you're right. I think it was a adaptation, maybe, from goddess to medicine woman in Yurok land to hold the medicines. Yeah. But it had to do with hope and healing forward. I do know that.
And I think we have a tendency to embrace other things and then include them, and that I think that's what was happening.
We have
they would come here to visit, or something like that.
I was just so glad he was paying attention in history class. I was very impressed. I said, wow, I learned something today. That's awesome.
And there's something about the art being interpreted by what you see as well as what the intention was behind it, so that while it wasn't recorded and it wasn't these things, it's recorded sort of internally in your kinesthetic response to the piece that then you bring to us. We have a question in the chat. Will the puppet show at Orrick School be a public performance?
I don't know exactly. With COVID, everything's pretty tight. We have 26 students there now, and in this little community. So we were trying to figure out a way that we could safely at least bring in, a representative of the family so they could see it. So I don't think we firmed that up. I know the principal really wants the parents to be able to come. So first off, I'm going to say no, that's probably going to be too much, but we are going to record it. So if you can't see it in person, then we'll try to post it on YouTube or something so everybody can see our final product.
And I just like to put in that I think it's it's a pilot program is my hope and vision for it as well. So
yes, I think number 2, what I'd like to see the second school is Margaret Keating there in Klamath. And
that would be great.
We're going to get our first one under our belt before we take it on the road. So it'll be fun.
Shoshana has a question from someone who's had their hand up for a while. Shoshana?
Oops, okay.
Meg Stofsky, would you like to, we'd like to allow you to talk. So if you'd like to ask your question, now is a good time.
Oh, thank you so much. I am just so grateful. My heart is full in in seeing this. My voice isn't very strong. So I have heard about this in the water protection and advocacy certificate course. And now I'm seeing it, and it just, I'm a retired school psychologist who used art with children. And I am wondering, is there, in going forward, should there be a place for non-Indigenous, what else am I going to say, colonizer, who committed the trauma, who carry that, who don't want to talk about it? That's the whitewashing of history. Is there a place to come together in a restorative justice way to do something like this? Or do you think it might be better for us to do that outside of the community that we so harmed? Just wondering.
I think, there's much discussion now across the country, and I actually spent some time with the California Judicial Commission this morning about what should be on our agenda in terms of truth and healing. And how do you do that? Now, truth and healing, to be effective, has to have all the parties.
Yes.
For it to work. Now, how do you do that when there's been so much harm, and how do you restore? And I think that's part of the conversation. And I think you have to have it with each other. We have to have it together, meaning Yurok and others. You have to have it together, and then we have to come together, because the truth of the matter is now, we as Yuroks, we survived because, frankly, we ran and hid. But now is a different time, and nobody can run and hide now, because the harm is too big, and we're either all going to survive or nobody's going to survive. And that's what people have to realize at this point. We have to take control of our destiny here and do it differently. Because if we allow this to go forward, this pollution in this river, and if we kill this river and other rivers, nobody's going to make it.
Right.
It's not just Yuroks who are going to suffer. It's going to be everybody. And so I believe as a movement, we have to expand. And I believe for us, like I said, we were never the kind of people before the invasion who would go, okay, well, it's dinner time, so every Yurok can come and eat, and everybody who's not Yurok can starve. I mean, it just wasn't in us.
Right.
And we need to get back to that. And others who had similar cultures, but who lost it in the transition, also need to get back to that. And how are we going to go forward? How in the world are we going to go forward? And if what I said to all these judges this morning is, if I had the answer, I would tell you. I'm not into keeping it from you. But, we have to work toward the answer. But I do know that, I can't sit in my corner and figure it out, and then it's going to be okay. That's not how it's going to happen. I know that much, and it's going to take active efforts and participation. It isn't going to be about, okay, well, I'm going to lock myself in my whatever and come up with the answer, and that's going to do it. It's not going to do it, frankly.
Thank you.
We have a question from Brenda Starr in the question and answer. What an amazingly powerful story process you mentioned. You mentioned that hopefully a mural will be created for missing and murdered Indigenous women who might be participants for that story mural. And is there a timeline for that?
We're actually working on setting it up, because Claudia she has perfected a way to do these things, do murals virtually. And it's like, what? At first she was explaining it to me, and I'm like, Claudia, how do you come up with this stuff? But she actually did this process where she was working with the kids detained in the camps along the border, and she had them lay down on the canvases, and then one of the other children would draw their outline. Then the kid who was outlined would get up and they painted in their story inside themselves. And the words that they then spoke to her afterwards about what it meant to them were amazing. And it's stunning to see that you know that you can do that, and you can adapt and adopt different ways of going forward. Even in this situation, she's still doing murals. We hope to do this mural this year, and the families who have lost people will be the ones who are invited to participate. And that's how we're pretty much going to do it. And you know, it's very meaningful to them. And it's a story that it goes generation to generation to generation, and it follows people. And it isn't something that they go, okay, well, you know, that was then and this is now. That's not how it works.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very much inside them, and it is their story. You know, if you've lost a parent to that, if you've lost a grandparent to that, it's still in your memory and in your pain field.
Maybe just for people who think maybe the missing and murdered Indigenous women is outside of Humboldt County, maybe you could talk just a little bit about what it is, the repercussions within our community here, because people tend to think of it as something outside of who we are and where we are. Maybe you could just speak to that for a moment.
Sure, I can, you know, California is 5th in the nation for murdered and missing Indian women. And 1/3 of those murdered and missing Indian women or children are from the north, from here, from Humboldt and Del Norte County. And that's the truth of it. You know, and that makes it very relevant to us. And it's also something that people feel is pretty severely undercounted. And I mean, I'll tell you just a story, just to show how relevant it is. Before the pandemic shut everything down, I was having lunch across the street at the casino restaurant. And I walked past this young woman. And I thought, boy, she looks so familiar to me. I sat down, I had lunch. And then I finally got up and I went over and I said, hi, I'm Judge Abby. Who are you? Because you look so familiar to me. And she said, I know who you are. And I said, and what's your name? And she told me her name. And I said, oh, honey, I remember you now, but you were so little when I last saw you, you know, and now you're all grown up. And she said, yeah, I have a daughter. And she said, but I wanted to tell you that my grandma said before she died, and she had just recently died, that we should have given you our 21 money. I should have given you my 21 money. And I said, what did your grandma say that for? And she said, because when they took mom, when she left and didn't come back, you helped her get us so that the foster people wouldn't take us. And we owe you everything for that. I said, honey, no, you don't. You do not owe me anything. You have a child now. And if you have that money, you take care of your child. And that will be fine with me. And I said, I don't like to argue with your grandmother, but she and I spent most of our life arguing with each other, so it's okay. Whereupon she laughed. As, you know, but it's that pain, that raw pain inside, you know, was so there for her. And until I can, you know, my thing is I hope to find her, meaning her mother, and bring her home and have the burial that she needs and bring this family some peace. You know, because it doesn't go away. That pain does not go away.
There's another comment in the question and answer that says, Judge Abernanti, your work is so inspiring and healing blessings for us all. Restorative justice through honoring, nurturing, resurrecting culture with familial love and art at the center is needed now more than ever. I do not have access to a microphone, but hope to be a part of this work and wonder if there might be volunteer opportunities in the future. If so, Would it be possible to provide an email address to contact? Thank you so much for the good work you and your colleagues do.
You know, I think that would be a question for Laura when she comes back. She's doing something. And Alana, you're on here and you said you have an updated timeline for the missing and murdered mural. If you want to give us that, just so I know. Lana's, no.
I think Shoshana's just bumping her up to a panelist level. I just heard that conversation from the studio that I'm in here to the little hidey hole that Shoshana's in over there. I
All
heard
right.
her say that. So
Bump
hopefully
that child.
there she is.
All
I
right.
think she just came up.
Yes, Alana, you've joined us in the panelist area if you'd like to speak.
Oh, gee, I had to come running over here. I was making a
That's right.
sandwich. I heard I got called out. Yeah, I'm one of the people working with Claudia on this missing and murdered Indigenous mural. And we meet pretty regularly, about once every 2 weeks on this. We had to stop for a little bit because of the wildfire catastrophe that was going on all around us. You know, a lot of our relatives down south evacuated. A lot of people we knew from up here had to evacuate and lost their homes. So we kind of put it on the back burner for a little bit. You know, survival took precedent over anything else. So we're shooting for a summer project for this MMIW mural, and we've been kind of going back and forth about how we're going to keep everyone safe during a pandemic and also get them to engage. Sorry, putting my computer in here. To also get them to engage. And I think we've worked it out now to where we're going to do every family that we identify, so that they have to get a hold of our partner Sovereign Bodies Institute, who put out that big report alongside us, and because they work on the ground with a lot of survivors, a lot of families. So we're going to operate through them and be able to have this group that can do art together, but also remotely. Everyone gets a chunk of canvas, everyone gets their supplies that we gave them, and then with Claudia brings it out of them to actually get what they feel on canvas. I guess she has a talent for that. I've never personally worked with her in an art kind of sense, but I can tell just by speaking with her how she's able to draw things out of people. She has a way like that. So we're really excited, and we're shooting for the summertime. I think we should be able to start drawing families in probably in the next 2 months or so, and then really get to working on that.
Thank you. So that answers the question better than I did. I knew somebody was working on it, but that somebody was just around the corner. So is there another question, or where are we with that? I want to make sure I answer them.
Claudia's website is up in the chat. Free Freedom said, absolutely, accessing the grief and pain is how the real deep healing and rebirth happens. And just to confirm that the mural that we were looking at is up in the entryway of the Yurok tribal headquarters in Klamath.
Right.
So that will be there. Laura, did you want to say something? I thought I saw you unmute.
Yeah, no, I had to step away. We have our elders hot lunch delivery today. We couldn't do it yesterday because of the weather up there. So I just had to deal with something. I was just telling you I was back, and if there was any other questions or anything for me, be happy to answer them. Judge, did you see Alana's on the line too? If Alana wants to talk to the missing.
Well, yeah, she did. While you were gone, we had her fill us in because she had that all.
Just trying to include my Alana.
Someone
missed it, Laura.
Yeah,
It was
really.
directly to you. I did it for you, and you weren't even there.
Whatever, huh?
Jenny Council said, it seems that many of the women and children coming across the border are Indigenous, but I've heard little talk of that or the genocide they're fleeing. Any thought on that with the work on imprisoned migrant children?
Well, you know, it's one of the things that historically and periodically nag at me, that we have not, in this country particularly, reached out to them, and that the tribes here have not. I mean, it's sort of the same thing, you know, in California has the largest population of tribal people, and yet a lot of that, because we were pretty much massacred here, are from the relocation people who were sent here, who were forced to come here. And we have not reached out to each other very well, because like I said, the people who were here survived by running and hiding. And we have become, tribal people have become so invisible. I'm often complaining about the fact that, you know, when we got in line for superpowers, we seem to claim the superpower of being invisible. You know, when I get in that line again, I think I'm going to go for the leaping tall buildings because it seems like really exciting. But, you know, instead we got invisible. And trying to deal with that is really complicated, you know, for them and for us. You know, and I know a lot of the Aztec dance family people, because I have friends that are in those dance families, and it's very painful for them, you know, to not be able to help and to not be seen as a resource and not be connected with these kids, because a lot of them would take these kids in, you know, and there's very little effort. And I've at different times have tried to tell people, look at these people, look at these people. These dance families are huge. They dance all over, you know, from San Francisco down through Arizona, through New Mexico. These families are big, and they're very willing to help.
We have a question in the chat that says, thank you for this amazing. You can participate, who can participate in the MMIW art project? Only Yuroks or other Indigenous women in the area? That's from Dr. Rain Marshall.
I think what we're doing is we're pretty much reaching out to the area, because that's who we're working with at SBI, and who we're, I mean, part of it is, let me just be careful about this. They have to want to participate. You know, we will reach out to them and make the offer, but, and many of them will, I think, because we have an ongoing dialogue with them, but we obviously won't be naming anybody or calling anybody out. We'll just say, we're going to do this. Do you want to participate? And if you do, here's how you do it. And then, you know, we'll bring stuff to them and that way. But we're not really into, I'm not, and I try to stay away from designing projects that exclude people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we'll go, oh, they're part of a Yurok family, or oh, they live in a Yurok neighborhood, or oh, they, whatever, or they're in our territory, so we're responsible.
We're kind of shooting for all of Northern California at this point.
Yeah, really. For
Down
instance,
lake area, Siskiyou area, you know, because this doesn't happen just here. It doesn't just happen to Yurok. So any family affected by the missing and murdered Indigenous crisis can participate.
Yeah, and they can reach out to us, you know, and they will be included in our project, and they will hear about it then. We have a lot of them in our project, let me just say.
Mm-hmm. We have another comment in the chat. Let me get to it. Oh, someone suggested the ICWA was a tool for those kids, the Indian Child Welfare Act, but Angie said it is not a tool for those kids unless they are members or eligible for membership in a United States federally recognized tribe. And then Sabra said, I would tell Joe Giovanni and Elle Frank if they're not already involved. I just like to say that I find the work that the Yurok Wellness Coalition, all the many, many projects and fingers that are reaching out into our community, quite inspiring and confusing for me to try and figure out who was doing what. There is so much going on, so much amazing community outreach and wellness work that it is totally inspiring to wend my way through the networks of what's happening, and so many people on so many fronts that I just it's an inspiring model for me. Being an artist and an arts organization and setting up, trying to set up a community, my own community, Rabbits Warren, trying to see how the outreach, like you're saying, how we can work together. And so I look forward to continuing to weave those threads into a beautiful cloth, as they say in the art world. And I just want to put that in there. We have about 2 minutes left. If anybody has, someone said, I remember a Kickapoo judge here in Humboldt 20 years ago. Might she be contacted for this? What is the, sorry, I'll let you answer that question.
I know who we're talking about, and her name is like Marilyn, and we have talked, and we will, and I will continue to talk with her.
And Meg Stofsky says, what is the best way for non-Indigenous women to support missing and murdered Indigenous women and other healing projects?
No, I think what I suggested is if you reach out to somebody like Laura, and we're going to start building a base of, here's people who want to help and who want to partner. And at some point, I think we are going to offer opportunities to have discussions about how are we going to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
And that's basically what I was saying to the judges this morning. Right now we have a plan to have a plan, because this is not working, and so anybody who has anything that can help us move that forward, we're going to be interested in, because like I said, this is, we're all in the same boat here. Yeah, Laura can put her stuff. Yeah, there she goes.
Laura put her name in the
Yeah.
chat there. People can also reach out to me at the Playhouse too. I'm working with Laura on the Orrick project, and Skuiek Sonina. Is that how I say it? Pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm working on that project with Laura as well. So if that email gets lost, feel free to reach out to me. Well, Judge Abby and Laura and Alana, thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you for taking time out of your very busy days to chat with us all. And I look forward to more conversations and more work together. I'll do my hands. So be well, be safe. And thank you so much. People are flowing in saying thank you all so much. Wonderful presentation. Thank you, synergy happening. Thank you.
All right, great.
Pila.